I recently had the opportunity to interview Lisa Roderick, affectionately known as Basecamp Lisa. Lisa was the Basecamp manager on Denali for 22 years and has just a tremendous number of really interesting and engaging stories that she writes about in her new book called A Place Among the Giants. Here's a little interview I did of her.
My name is Lisa Roderick. I wrote a book called A Place Among Giants about my 22 years working up as the Denali base camp manager during climbing season. So it's roughly about almost 3 months that I'm working up there on the Kahiltna Glacier, doing weather observations. I'm actually working for the Talkeetna-based air services. They collectively get together, hire, and pay the base camp manager. So you're up there letting them know what the weather's doing, whether they can come in and bring in climbers. They want to know what the winds are doing, where the clouds are, whether it's flyable. They're flying what's VFR, which is visual flying. So, yeah, it's important to have someone up there that can relay that information. It just saves a lot of fuel, that they don't have to come up there, take a look, realize they can't land and then have to turn around. So I'm going to tell them whether the airstrip's open or not. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. There's a lot of other things that goes on. There's the National Park Service that is up there working with me because obviously it's in the park and I have a special concession to work up there.
Can you give me a little bit of just a glimpse as to what your day looks like? Like, what time did you get up in the morning? When did you go to bed? What kinds of things were happening on a day-to-day basis? I mean, in a book, it feels like it's insanity.
Yeah, I feel like I spent 20 years up there. I feel like my first 10 years up there, it was just nonstop action. I get up in the morning, usually around 7, and I look outside and
Mhm.
I get an idea of what the weather's looking like. So I make a note of where the clouds are, what the winds are doing, how much new snow overnight, and I get a report. And I have a little weather station up there. So I write down the temperatures, the winds, and then I record all that. And then at 8 o'clock, I make a call I had a radio telephone up there,
Mhm.
and I relay all that information to the air services. And then they'll let me know what their day's like. Whether how many climbers they're bringing in, and then I'll let them know if there's climbers waiting to fly
Mhm.
out. So I'll book their flights out back to Talkeetna. And so get up in the morning. The planes usually start flying around 9:30. And if I have climbers sitting there, then I'll help load the planes. And then they're bringing in climbers. So then I help unload the planes, get the gear off the runway, check in with the National Park Service, see what they're up to. And then they help me, I help them. Sometimes there's rescues going on where they're bringing in their Park Service contracted helicopter and they have to go and get someone. So I'll help with communications with that. Sometimes we have the Chinook helicopters, like the military's coming up to help with a rescue. And so I'll just do whatever needs to be done, whether, we're carrying people on a stretcher and bringing them, like Life Med will land up there, and maybe I'm loading a helicopter with a patient or that kind of thing. So you just never know what's going to happen up there. Every day is different. Sometimes it's really boring. Sometimes it's snowing all day, whited out, and there's nothing to do except for your camp chores. And then sometimes it's all hell's breaking loose up there.
And yeah, so that it's craziness. And
Yeah.
a lot of the stories you told were about these chaotic, unruly climbers. Like I was up there once and I didn't guide Denali very much, but we were stuck and I just heard you mention something like we should get everybody to walk around out there just so that people stop being so pissy.
Yeah, I mean, you
And
got to give people something to do. I think
yeah.
people aren't used to sitting in their
Hmm.
tents, but so packing the runway was definitely an important part of the
Sure.
job, is getting people out there. When the planes land, they can land through deep snow, but if they want to take a full
Hmm.
load, trying to take off, then
Hmm.
it's best to have that packed runway because they're on their skis and they can take out full loads if we have a
Sure.
packed runway. So we get out there, and it's good to get people out of their tents because people are going
Yeah.
a little bonkers.
Yeah, I'll
So we get them
say.
out of their tent. We go have a runway packing party,
Mm.
and yeah, and then it gives them a little bit of
Hmm.
a hope that they're doing something to maybe bring in the airplanes. So um,
I love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Can you read the first two paragraphs of your book? Do you feel comfortable
Oh,
doing that?
Sure. Do you want to do it?
I can do it.
Okay.
I'm happy to. Um,
I just like it coming out of other people's mouths sometimes.
sure.
But if you, yeah, either
I
way,
will do it.
okay.
Yes. Oh, this
Cool.
is Conrad. Okay. Prologue, June 19th, 2000. A furious gust slams the shelter, shaking its sturdy frame and bringing me back to attention. Cups, utensils, food items, and bottles of sunscreen take flight from the makeshift plywood shelves and scatter across the wooden floor. It takes a strong wind to shake the walls of this rugged shelter, which is the same as those used by people working in places like Alaska's North Slope oil fields and the research stations of the Antarctic continent. I set my book on the milk crate that serves as my nightstand, rise from my cot, and head for the door to check the weather. Cold air rushes inside as I open the tent's hinged aluminum door, and I emerge from my heated hovel into a dramatic subarctic mountain landscape. The white expanse of the Kiltna Glacier's southeast fork stretches away to my left and right, disappearing into swirling, fast-moving mists. The sun appears but for a moment, casting the strong solar rays of the Alaskan solstice across the icy ramparts of the Alaska Range before it ducks away again. Small open Small holes open in the clouds, revealing tantalizing glimpses of Mount Hunter's tortured icy ridges and precipitous granite walls just 2 miles up glacier from my camp. In the other direction, bands of clouds frame sections of Mount Foraker's hulking east face, which towers almost 10,000 vertical feet above the Kiltna Glacier's main fork. 4 deceptive miles distant, Denali, North America's tallest mountain at 20,310 feet, a magnet for mountain climbers from all over the world, the namesake feature of this national park and the primary reason for this camp I'm in, lies hidden behind a bank of cloud and mist to the north. I love that. And I have
Good.
to say that like when I read that, I read lot of a lot of mountaineering literature. And most writers are not strong writers. And I love how clean the writing is. And it's not just a beginning thing either. This is throughout the book. Sometimes people are strong and then they kind of like, oh, that later part doesn't matter. But I feel that your depth of description, metaphor, and just like uh, the use of the present tense, all makes it feel very, very vital.
I asked a bunch of authors if they had any advice for me, and I remember I was stuck on the glacier with John Krakauer,
Hmm.
and I said, "What do you think? Can you give me some advice?" And he just said his one thing he said to me was, "Keep the pages turning." And so
Yeah.
that was all he said. And
Uh-huh.
but I appreciated that. That was always in the back of my
Hmm.
mind that I don't, I've read a lot of memoirs where you can get a little bogged down,
Yes.
and I didn't want that. I love the fact that you noticed that it was written in the present tense
Yeah.
because that wasn't an accident. We
Okay.
actually did some research on that and asked around. And
Hmm.
yeah, it is a little unusual maybe for mountain climbing books, but I just felt like I wanted to put the person in the story and kind of like you said, a sense of immediacy to the
Hmm.
scene.
Hmm.
And yeah, we wanted people to feel that wind on their face and maybe the snow grapples. Yeah, that was really important, and I think you can only achieve that by writing how it's going on at the time. So
Yeah,
to make it so it's happening to them,
of
the
course.
reader. Yeah.
There are both heartbreaking stories in the book and very funny ones. I mean, I can imagine like the writing of some of these stories had a huge impact, both in a positive and a difficult way. And I mean, uh, do you have any thoughts on that process
Yeah,
and revisiting this stuff?
it was hard to revisit. I
Yes.
had a lot of journals, and
Uh-huh.
so revisiting the journals, and even like when I set off to write these stories, try to get the dialogue correct, and just remembering things, it actually brought back
Yeah.
a lot of memories and PTSD, to tell you the
Sure.
truth.
Of course. Yeah.
I'd like to say that writing all this down was cathartic and I was so at peace with everything, but that's not the case
No.
for me anyways. It
Yeah.
actually just brought up a lot of stuff. And
Hmm.
but it did make me question. It made me try to process things
Hmm.
by, writing this stuff down, but it's still, like that last chapter in the book of having to walk away, not
Hmm.
having to, but deciding to walk away. When,
Hmm.
even when I reread that, even though I wrote it, I get all teared up. And then when I
Yes.
read about, Joe Purrier and Laura and
Yes, of
Brad,
course.
like it's really hard. And I've actually had this one local pilot come up to me and say, Lisa, I got PTSD from reading your book. And I was like, yeah, I know. So did
Hmm.
I.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a hard thing, but
And what else would you like to share about your book or any of the stories or anything else that you'd like people to know about?
I just I just really wanted people to know about the Basecamp managers
Hmm.
and what they're
Yeah.
doing. So I wrote about, all the Basecamp managers that worked up there for any period of time,
Hmm.
giving up their summers to go live on a glacier, and trying to help the climbers and the
Yeah.
pilots. And we get paid for the job, but it's just not for everybody living up there. So, it's cold weather camping,
Hmm.
in a harsh environment. And yeah, I just wanted people to know that yes, there's these amazing pilots that fly
Hmm.
into these mountains and they have skis on their airplane and they're landing on glaciers and there's someone that lives up there. And I just thought it was, yeah, and what the climbing rangers do, risking
Hmm.
their life to help out and keep the mountain clean and to be a resource up there. I just thought it was important to get that story out there.
It is, and we all, I think, appreciate it from all the different communities, and it's cool to hear about all those other things, but you are definitely a center of that spoke going out. And I think that all of us who read your book feel like we can see that you're the center of the wheel, and we really appreciate the work that you did up there and telling us about it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right.